Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 114. For this one, we play a 5-5 session at the Gardens Casino in Los Angeles, and I get into more big hands than I've ever gotten into for any video before. It's a very special episode. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Southern California, where life is pretty great. We're about to hold our first meetup game of the decade. I arrive a few days early so that I can enjoy the sights, relax a little, and explore some of the nightlife. This is a special trip for me because I'm able to bring my girlfriend. We celebrate an early birthday for her.
I'll make a wish.
Yeah, her birthday is in June, so we celebrated very early this year. It's almost time for poker. I head to the Gardens Casino where we're hosting the event. There's more action here than probably anywhere else on the planet right now. We bring in 19 additional tables of 5-5 for the meetup game. This enormous room is packed, and that's not even close to the total amount of people here. On this side of the wall, there's another huge room that's filled for the WPT main event. Gardens is currently the poker center of the universe. I buy into the game for $600, which is the max. There are a few recognizable faces around, including Hall of Fame mugger Brian Stafford, Mariano the poker vlogger, and Suited Superman, who is an Instagram star. In the first hand we'll go over, I pick up pocket jiggities, so you know this vlog's going to be good. Under the gun +2 raises to 25. The button calls. I call in the small blind. We go 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out Jack 8-7, all clubs. We have top set. I check. Under the gun +2 checks. The button bets 40. There are a lot of cards that I wouldn't like to see on future streets. I put in a raise to 140. Both opponents fold. We're off to a nice start. Several orbits later, we're dealt pocket 10s in the big blind. Under the gun opens at 20. He's made it clear that he's after some Bradley dollars. Brian calls in the hijack. I flat. 3 of us see the flop. It's 10-3 deuce with 2 clubs. Top set for us again. I check. Under the gun bets 25. Brian calls in the hijack. I like these guys, but they're doomed. I get ultra sneaky and I flat. No one would expect me to do that with the set on a board with several draws out there. The turn is a queen. I check. Unfortunately, both players check back. The good news is that the river is another queen. We make a full house. I assume my opponents won't have much since it's check through on the turn. All the draws missed, and most of the 10s are accounted for. If I bet, I probably won't be able to get called by much. I check, hoping someone will take a stab at it as a bluff, or if they happen to be strong, maybe they can bet, and we'll call a check raise. We have a customer. The under the gun player bets 55. The hijack folds. Under the gun is in for a big surprise. I announce a raise to 180. This has to look extremely odd after I check 3 times. The opponent is thinking about it. He does not trust my lankiness, and he makes the call. He gets some bad news when I show my hand. He's awarded 0 Bradley dollars, and instead takes a one-way trip to Paintown via boat. A good-sized pot is coming towards us. We then find out that the under-the-gun player called us light to potentially bluff catch.
You had anything? No. Oh. I had worse than that.
What did you call me with?
Oh, man. Anybody else I wouldn't say, but I guess for
You have ace high?
No, 9s.
9s. The strange line works out for us. We make the maximum. Next, we're at the second table of the night where we're dealt pocket queens under the gun +2. Under the gun +1 limps in for 5. I raise to 25. The hijack calls. Under the gun +1 calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes queen 9-6 with 2 spades. I know what you're thinking. That's 3 hands in a row we're going over. We're gonna have top set. We'll get used to it. I wasn't lying in the intro when I said that we make a ton of huge hands throughout the whole session. Under the gun +1 checks. I bet 45. I typically don't slow play as the pre-flop aggressor on wet boards. There are plenty of drawing type hands that my opponents could call a raise with. The hijack folds. Under the gun +1 makes it 120. There aren't too many things that are better than flopping the nuts and getting check raised. This particular player only has 130 behind, but he just got caught bluff raising a few hands earlier. If he's bluffing me here, I want to keep him in. I call. The turn is the 5 of hearts. 8-7 makes it straight. I'm not too concerned about that. Under the gun +1 jams, as I suspected he might with almost any hand that he could possibly have. I slide in chips and call. The opponent is not happy to see that.
Lose not play.
They tried to find out
Pretty standard, yeah, it's like 7 miles.
I got there.
Yep,
You have king 10. The opponent check raised me on the flop with the gutter. The trap was set perfectly for him. He gets the rest of his money in, drawing dead to 4 outs on the turn. No problem. He drills it. If he played his cards face up, I would have taken the same line. I'm happy with the way that I played it. We just get unlucky. After losing this hand, our profit for the night is nearly erased, and the stack is back down to about what we started with. A few hands later, we pick up 8-7 suited in the big blind. The hijack opens at 15. The small blind calls. I call. 3 of us see the flop. It's 8-8 deuce with 2 spades. We have 3 of something again. The small blind checks. I check to the pre-flop raiser. He bets 25. The small blind calls. I contemplate whether to raise or not. I go with the flat. The turn is a 4. The small blind checks. I'm concerned that the hijack may not bet again after getting called in 2 spots on the flop. I take the initiative and I bet 65. The hijack isn't sure what he wants to do. Eventually he folds. Small blind calls. I have no idea what he has. The river is a 5. Small blind checks. Some part of me is concerned that the small blind has a better 8 or another big hand that has me beat. Still, I'm not going to check back trips. Could be up against a hand like 9s or 10s. I bet 150 to make it look like I'm bluffing with a missed draw. Small blind doesn't think very long before making the call. I turn over the 3/8. The opponent lets me know that I'm good and tosses his cards into the muck. We win another interesting one to get our stack back up to where it was before we lost with a set of queens. At new table, I pick up pocket 10s in the hijack. Under the gun opens a 20. Under the gun plus 2 calls. I call. The cutoff calls. The button comes along too. We go 5 ways to the flop. It's king 3 deuce rainbow. We all check. The turn is a jack. We all check again. The river's a 10. We drill another set. Under the gun bets 45. It's very unlikely that he's bluffing here since he's first to act on the river and has to get through 4 opponents. Also, this is the kind of board that heavily favors an early position pre-flop raiser. He could have been slow playing top set of kings or perhaps turned a set of jacks, but I think it's more likely that he has ace queen for a straight. Under the gun plus 2 folds. It's on me. Can't think of many hands that the under the gun player would play this way that I'm beating. I'm not going to raise. I call. The cutoff and button both fold.
Ace queen's good. 3-9? That's pretty good as well. I think I lost the minimum there.
That's the second time we've lost with a set to a straight. At least this time it didn't cause too much damage. I shake it off and pick up ace king suited in the big blind. Under the gun limps in. Middle position player raises to 25. The hijack calls. Small blind calls. I'm going to 3-bet. When I choose a sizing, I typically make it 3 times what my opponent bet, plus 1 increment of his bet for each caller, and then I add on a little more for being out of position. That gets me to 150. The under the gun player folds. The pre-flop raiser 4-bet shoves for 400 total. The hijack and small blind both fold. I make the call. I don't really love getting it in with ace king. I may be behind. The flop is great though. It's jack 3 deuce with 2 clubs. 1 more club and we'll have the nut flush. The turn is a 4. We pick up a straight draw. The river is a 5. We get there. The only issue is that the middle position player turns over ace king as well. That would have been a great time to make a flush. Somehow the opponent fades all the clubs in the deck. It doesn't seem right.
He's the luckiest man in the world. Luckiest man in the world.
Despite chopping that, we're having a great night with lots of energy, good people, a few drinks, and a couple of aces in middle position. Under the gun plus 1 opens at 25. Under the gun plus 2 calls. I 3-bet to 105. The initial pre-flop raiser has this look in his eye like he's not ready to let go of his hand. He 4-bets to 250. It's getting intense AF in here. Under the gun plus 2 folds. I have 750 in my stack. I could flat to trap. Instead, I choose a more standard approach.
You two all in.
750-ish?
Call, right? I call?
Cooler, it's a cooler. I call.
The opponent shows kings. I turn over my cards. This is definitely a cooler situation. I just want a clean run out. Nope. The first card we see is a king right in the window. It's absolutely brutal. I run the worst.
Oh my! Oh!
One more.
Just kidding. We set over set the opponent. That's actually brutal for him, but I'm rooting for pocket kings to win. If another king comes, with the jackpot for 3,500.
One more ace.
One more king.
King.
One more king. Ace or king. Ace or king.
We don't hit the jackpot. We do come out of it winning a pot of over 1,500. 2020 is off to an exciting start. I made a lot of big hands this session, and mostly won with them. I feel fortunate as stacks are brought towards me. I have to mention at this point that the opponent takes this beat about as well as I've ever seen. He's all smiles after, saying it was just a cooler, and he couldn't have lost to a better guy. His name's David. That's him in the 9 seat. If you ever see him playing, then maybe say hello and perhaps buy him a beer. He deserves it. That was the 5th set of the night, but I'm not done. I pick up pocket 5s under the gun plus 1. It's my very first hand at this table. I'm not paying attention and think someone raised it to 10. There's actually an under the gun straddle. I call the 10. Middle position player raises to 40. The hijack calls. I call. We go 3 ways to the flop. It's 7-5-3 with 2 diamonds. We've now made 6 sets. We're 3-2 so far. I'd like to make it 4-2. I check. The pre-flop raiser bets 75. The hijack's all in for 105. I'm not sure whether to flat or raise. The pot will reopen from the hijack jamming. I might lean more towards flatting. Then the middle position player could raise again. The hijack unfortunately didn't have enough money to reopen it. I don't want to take any chances of having a bad card come on the turn. I announce a raise at 250. It's small, hoping to keep in big overpairs because those types of hands are drawing nearly dead. The action's on the middle position player. He has a huge decision to make. We both have large stacks. If he calls or raises here, we're likely going to get it all in at some point. I wouldn't mind if that happens on the flop. He's worried that I've shown too much strength after 2 players have already shown interest and one's all in. He lays down what he says is pocket kings. That's too bad. Check raise would have worked out better if the hijack hadn't shoved. I turn over my cards, it's heads up, there's no more action, the turn is a 9, the river is an ace, the hijack doesn't seem too thrilled, he eventually shows he has pocket 4s, he had a pair and a gut shot on the flop, I'm up 1200 total, and I'm pumped up. I've got ace 10 suited in the big blind, under the gun +1 opens at 25, the cutoff calls, the button calls, small blind calls, I defend the big blind and call as well. We go 5 ways to the flop, it's king, queen, 7 rainbow, we have a gutter and a backdoor flush draw. We all check, the turn is another king, small blind checks. Once it's checked around on the flop, I figure I'm the person that can most credibly rep a big hand, and I at least have a draw. I bet 50. Trying to get a bluff through 4 players is not the best idea I've ever had. Sometimes I just can't help myself. To make things even more interesting, Andrew Nemi comes by with the camera out, filming me make a questionable play.
I want to see how professional
I don't even get through 1 player. Under the gun +1 calls. This is sort of scary. Maybe he has a monster. The cutoff button and small blind all fold. I peel my cards for Andrew's camera. I want to give his viewers a show. The river is an 8. We don't have anything. I can't give up on a hand that has 2 people capturing the action. That wouldn't be fun. I throw out a prayer bet at 200. This should work. My opponent has a missed draw or maybe even a queen. So I lift up my camera to get some footage of Andrew filming. I hear my opponent put in a big raise.
600? Yeah, that's not going to be a good one for us. just for Andrew's channel.
Don't edit that out because I got the footage of it too.
We punt off a few hundred, then pick up ace 4 of spades in the hijack. Under the gun limps in. I raise to 20 to isolate him. Under the gun calls. It's heads up. The flop is queen 3 deuce with 2 spades. We have the world. Under the gun checks. I bet 20. The player calls. The turn is exactly what I wanted to see. It's a 5, giving us a straight that our opponent may not expect us to have. Under the gun checks. I bet 45. It's not a huge bet. I want to keep the player in with a wide range. Under the gun makes the call. The river is a king. The player checks. This is a street where I go for a home run. I bet 160. Maybe the player will think that I'm bluffing and will call light. Maybe he'll have a strong hand himself like king queen or a king high flush draw that rivered top pair. A lot of times people just want to see whether or not a river bet is a bluff without having to wait for a vlog to come out and they'll call. One of those things happens here as the opponent puts in chips. I turn over the straight. It's a winner. Notice that my river bet was nearly 4 times what I bet on the turn when I had a big hand. That's exactly what I did when I missed my draw and bluffed on the previous hand too. Big bets don't always mean that I'm bluffing or that I have it. As a general rule, you typically want to value bet the river about twice as often as you're bluffing it. Next we see a 9-5 deuce flop and a 9-handed $20 bomb pot. I look down at pocket jacks under the gun +1. Hold on, let's redo this. Next we see a 9-5 deuce flop and a 9-handed $20 bomb pot. I look down at pocket jiggities under the gun +1. Checks to me, I bet 60. The action's on the small blind. He's mentioned previously that he's coming after me. He's also a Seahawks fan. I guess that they just let anyone into the building. I know that Seattle was in the playoffs, but I'm not sure what happened to him. I looked. For some reason, I didn't see him scheduled to play against the Niners in the NFC Championship game.
I'm gonna get the next one, Brad.
Oh, good
I know
fold.
how you play those bomb pots. You get lucky.
No, I got a good hand.
Okay, yeah.
Another pot is pushed towards us. We're running extremely well. At the 6th table of the night, we've got ace king in the big blind. Under the gun +1 opens at 20. The cutoff 3 bets to 75. He doesn't have a whole lot in his stack. Flatting a 3-bet with a strong but vulnerable hand out of position isn't ideal. I 4-bet to 225. I'll call an all-in from either player. Under the gun +1 folds. The cutoff 5-bet shoves. I toss in a chip to call. We're heads up. The flop is king 6 deuce rainbow. As long as we're not up against aces or kings, we should be in the lead. The turn is a 3. The river's a 4. I turn over my cards first because the cutoff doesn't seem very confident, and I've got a good hand. He shows for the camera that he has pocket jiggities. They don't work out for him. He gets it in as a slight favorite. We get a fortunate run out to win. We've got over 2,200 in front of us and are up 1,600 on the night. Here we have ace queen offsuit on the button. Under the gun +2 opens at 15. The hijack calls. I call. The big blind calls. We go 4 ways to the flop. It's ace 8-3 with 2 diamonds. We have top pair and a good kicker. The big blind and under the gun +2 both check. The hijack bets 20. I call. The big blind and under the gun +2 fold. It's heads up. The turn is a jack. The hijack bets 30. Again, this is a small bet. I wouldn't expect the opponent to have anything too strong. Ace queen's probably good. I raise to 80. I want to get more money in now before any scare cards come out on the river. The hijack calls. The river is the 9 of diamonds. The opponent checks. The flush gets there, and a lot of worse aces have made 2 pair. I check back to get the showdown. The hijack turns over ace 8 offsuit. He flopped top 2. We lose that one. In the last hand that we'll go over for the night, it's a $20 bomb pot. We're dealt 4-3 suited in the big blind. The flop is ace jack deuce with 2 clubs. We have a flush draw and a gutter. Small blind checks. I bet 60. Under the gun +2 calls, the button also calls, 3 of us see the turn, it's a dream card, it's the 5 of diamonds, I've got the nuts. What's even better is that it's a card that's almost never going to help me after I bet the flop, unless I have exactly 4-3 of clubs. I check to make it appear as if I have a 1 pair or worse hand, maybe someone can bet with an ace or as a semi-bluff with a draw. That's not what happens. Under the gun +2 and the button both check, that's not good. It's very possible one or both of them has better clubs than me, and they're trying to realize their equity. It's also unlikely that they'll have hands strong enough to call a big river bet unless they improve. I just hope a blank comes out. Nope, it's the 5 of clubs. My hand improves from a straight to a flush, but drastically decreases in value since I don't have anything close to the nuts anymore. I check. Under the gun +2 bets 125. I've underrep my hand so far, so I could have him beat. The button tanks, gets some chips out, then calls. I really don't know what to do. The pot is large. I'm getting a great price. The problem is that I have to beat 2 players who put in money after the board paired and the flush draw got there. Typically I call in these spots. Here I think it's too likely someone has a better flush. I take one last look and reluctantly fold. Under the gun +2 shows ace-9 of spades. Oh god, give me my cards back. The button turns over 7 deuce of clubs for a slightly better flush than me. Never mind, you can keep those cards. I make a non-standard play on the turn. It's unclear whether it helped me or hurt me. The button had a pair and a flush draw. I imagine that he would have at least called a decent sized bet, then would have gotten there on the river. I book a solid win and rack up shortly after. Just ended the session, first one of the new year, and we won 12-10 tonight, which is awesome. Ran really well for the most part. There were some weird spots that I was in, so this is gonna be a fun video for me to put together. This is my buddy Andrew, different Andrew, not Andrew Nemi, obviously, but him and I went to high school together and played poker a little bit. A little bit, yeah. So he lives in LA, and it's just cool that he came out. So we are headed to the bar now, and we're gonna have a few more drinks. The bar is always one of my favorite parts of the night. It's a good opportunity to hang out with everyone over drinks to discuss all kinds of poker and non-poker related topics. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. Huge thanks goes out to Gardens Casino. We had 19 tables, and that's one of the biggest events that we've ever done. We're gonna be coming out there once a month through June, so we're gonna have 2-day events. We'll probably be playing cash one day and then a tournament the next day. I have pretty much all the dates down below in the description box, so if you're interested in playing with Andrew and me and can make it out to Los Angeles, then check out those dates. A few other things coming up. The first thing is going to be our first European meetup game. It's going to be at Aspers Casino in London, January 23rd through the 26th. Very pumped up about that. From there, I'm going to be going out to Spain for 888's event at Madrid. And that's gonna be really cool as well. I'll be there for a week. And then, let's see, we have another Gardens meetup game, February 6th and 7th. And finally, to wrap up February, we have a meetup game at MGM Springfield in Massachusetts, February 18th and 19th. So I hope to see you guys somewhere along the way. Good luck at the tables, hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you next time.